Greetings, digital world. Welcome to another episode of Spliced In Later. Yes, I know it has been a minute since I last spoke to you. I do apologize. Some could say I'm getting slack. Others could say I'm busy. And it's a little bit of both. I had a wedding on last week, so I was unable really to record one of my usual episodes. And I did delay this week's episode until today, but for a very good reason, and that is that I wanted to bring to you all another movie review. A review for something that I've been highly anticipating for a couple of years. Definitely one of the most anticipated movies for me for 2020, which then of course became 2021. So today we are going to talk about the brand new Godzilla vs. Kong, which, depending where you are in the world, is available in cinemas or simultaneously streaming. If you're outside of Australia, I believe it's on HBO Max. Here in Australia, it's probably on Binge or something. Zack Snyder's Justice League is on Binge here, so I would assume other HBO Max releases are there as well. And as a side note, as I just mentioned that, I probably won't be talking about Zack Snyder's Justice League, but maybe I will. I haven't decided on that. I feel like anything that I could say about it has already been said, and I feel like I'd just be reiterating the same sort of stuff over and over again, but we'll see. If you'd like me to talk about Zack Snyder's Justice League, feel free to let me know, and maybe I'll dive into it. I have seen it, all 4 hours, but that's not what we're talking about today. We are talking about Godzilla vs. Kong. Now, the anticipation for this movie has been building for me for years. I was there when the 2014 Godzilla first dropped, and I was fine with it, but I didn't really enjoy it as much as I would have liked to for a Godzilla movie. Because, and this is a huge fault for the movie, it focused way too much on human characters and even seemed embarrassed to have Godzilla in the movie. Every time something was building up to seeing Godzilla on the big screen or to do a fight, it would cut away to the next day and news footage would tell you what had happened. And you were sitting there going, no, I wanted to see Godzilla fight that thing. That's why I'm watching Godzilla. Maybe it made up for it at the end where it did have its big fight with the creatures of the film, but overall it left me wanting. And I think it left a lot of people wanting, because the very next film, Godzilla King of the Monsters, was the complete opposite of that. It was very much Godzilla was front and center, as was all the other monsters in the movie. King Ghidorah, Rodan, Mothra. It was a monster fest, and it was absolutely what I wanted. I had an absolute ball with King of the Monsters. It was one of my top 10 movies of 2019. The fighting, the action, the spectacle, Nukezilla, everything in it was a lot of fun. And what was more fun about King of the Monsters was it was alluding to something which it had been hinted at before when another movie came out called Kong Skull Island. This was another movie about King Kong, but a reactionary to what the Godzilla 2014 reaction was there. This movie focused completely on King Kong. It was set during the Vietnam War. Some soldiers went to Skull Island to, I don't know, visit it, I guess. Came across Kong. Bit of a misunderstanding between everybody before they realized that the Skull Crawlers, they were the true enemies, and Kong had to save everybody and save the day and fight these things. But sprinkled throughout Skull Island were hints that this was set in the same world that the 2014 Godzilla movie was. And it was confirmed in a post-credit scene where they said there are other titans out there beside Kong. And there's a big Godzilla scream. And you went, ah. And then during King of the Monsters, when they were talking about all the titans roaming the world, they kept saying Skull Island's there, Kong's there. And basically it was all building to this very hotly anticipated promised movie called Godzilla vs. Kong, where, put simply, Godzilla and Kong are going to fight to see who is the supreme of the two, who is the alpha. Now, I was excited for this movie because if they followed the formula of Skull Island and King of the Monsters and just focused on Godzilla and Kong wailing on each other, there's no way this movie could have gone bad. It would have succeeded my expectations as expected. So, having just seen the movie now, what do I think? Well, it was alright, but unfortunately, it wasn't a 100% hit for me due to a few little things which really made my viewing experience suffer for it. And I feel like the people making this movie seem to have backtracked with what they had established with King of the Monsters and Skull Island and retreated back to the foundations of the 2014 Godzilla. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's get into this review. A very basic plot for this movie, a very simple summary is Godzilla is king. He is alpha. He has defeated all the monsters. He's roaming the earth. He hasn't been seen for a while, but everybody knows he's the best. Over on Skull Island, the humans are hiding Kong because they know that if Godzilla gets wind of him, he's going to want to fight him. Kong is king of his own world. Whether he could beat Godzilla or not, nobody wants to know. Everyone just wants to avoid more Titan conflicts. All of a sudden, Godzilla reappears, starts wailing on people, starts destroying things, very un-Godzilla-like. No one knows exactly what's going on. Through a series of events, Kong ends up being moved from Skull Island to go somewhere else. Godzilla senses him, goes, attacks. We have a series of fights, so on and so forth. There's a big mystery going on as to why Godzilla is doing what he's doing. All of the humans that support Godzilla know that he wouldn't do this unless there was a reason, so they want to figure out what's going on. Meanwhile, the humans with Kong, they've got their own mission going on involving the Hollow Earth theory that we established in King of the Monsters, and they want Kong to be able to help them to do that. Meanwhile, Kong is having his own crisis where he's alone in the world. He's been alone on Skull Island forever. He's only got this little girl for company, so he's looking for a family. All these little stories, which in the long run mean absolutely nothing, because what eventually happens is Godzilla fights Kong. Then a bit later, Godzilla fights Kong. And then Godzilla fights Kong. But I will not say how this movie ends up, where they're going with it. If you are familiar with Godzilla lore, you will not be surprised by anything in this movie. It goes exactly the way Godzilla movies of the past have done in terms of what Godzilla fights and why he fights. I believe there has been a Godzilla vs. King Kong movie in the past. I don't know how that movie went down, but I have a feeling its end result probably was the same way as this one was. So, the positivity for that, of this movie, is that when Godzilla and Kong do in fact fight, it's stupendous. I love it. I had a big stupid grin on my face the whole time. The way they just wail on each other, you would think that Godzilla could crush Kong, but whereas Godzilla is complete brute strength, behemoth, flamethrowering bulldozer, Kong is wily. Kong is able to use his surroundings to jump out of the way, to be nimble, to be quick. So he's able to get around Godzilla and put moves on him that Godzilla is too slow to necessarily put up a fight with. But whenever Godzilla does land a hit on Kong, it's brutal, bloody brutal. And you remember that this is just a monkey against a giant fire-breathing lizard. But as the fights go on, Kong adapts. He manages to put in his own few hits. The fights go different ways, so you never really know. You start going, okay, Godzilla's going to absolutely destroy Kong. But then you go, oh no, Kong, maybe he's coming back, he's got some moves. Oh, nope, Godzilla stepped on him. Oh, Kong's hit him in the face. It keeps you guessing about who's going to be the ultimate victor. And I will say, for this movie, it does establish who is the victor of these two in a battle. There is a clear winner. I won't say who, of course, you'll have to see the movie. But you will. It's not like Batman versus Superman, where Batman and Superman fight for about 4 minutes. And there's no clear winner, and then they go off and do something else. Godzilla vs. Kong, you will know who is the king of these two. The visuals are stupendous, as to be expected for a movie like this. CGI, top-notch, as it can be expected for a giant CGI monkey versus a giant CGI fire-breathing lizard. Everything looks believable, nothing looks too cheesy, nothing looks silly. There's some interesting moments of comedy in here, which I have not noticed in other Godzilla or King Kong movies. Mainly Kong's reaction to things, his everyday life on Skull Island, some bits involving the monster specifically that I did giggle at. And I think the movie itself is very self-aware of what it is, which is just these two very popular monsters fighting. Because when they're smashing about and destroying cities, every now and then it'll focus ever so slightly on a human being going, ah, as he runs away. Or a helicopter flying by going, ah. Like, that's the points where you remember, oh yeah, underneath these two are probably 1 million billion people getting squashed to death, being crushed in buildings. I don't care. Destroy as many of them as you can for an entertaining fight. But it's funny that the movie itself sort of goes, haha, that's pretty funny too. However, where the movie falls short, and it falls short rather dramatically here, is there is a huge focus on the human characters in this movie, to a point where Godzilla of the two, Godzilla and Kong, Godzilla is hardly in this movie. He pops up like about 3 times, I think, just to do his little fighting and then to move on. Otherwise, everybody's talking about Godzilla, but Godzilla is never there. Kong himself plays more of a role. This is more Kong's movie than Godzilla's movie. Kong is definitely more the protagonist of this film than Godzilla is. But especially in the opening, in the beginning, there's so many scenes of human characters talking and talking and talking and reacting to things, and then talking some more, and then some human characters will discover a secret that we as the audience already know because another group of humans already discussed this earlier on in the film. And it harkens back to the 2014 Godzilla of old, where Godzilla was around, but we focused so much on the military and the scientists and the humans on their battleships going, Godzilla's coming, Godzilla's coming, we gotta get ready, we gotta survive, we've gotta run. And unfortunately, these human characters in this movie, they are, without a doubt, the blandest, most boring of them all. And that's saying something. The 2014 Godzilla human characters, bland and boring, but Bryan Cranston and his drama, what was going on with him, elevated that up. The Skull Island human characters were funny, vibrant, cartoony characters which were part of a monster movie, so they were getting picked off one by one. The King of the Monsters human characters, pardon me, weren't particularly exciting, but they were always following a Godzilla around, reacting to what Godzilla was doing. Godzilla was the main orchestrator of events. They followed along for the ride. Godzilla or King Ghidorah, pick whichever one pick. Here, the humans dictate specifically what Kong is doing, and to a certain extent, what Godzilla is doing. And they are so bleh. The main human character here, played by Alexander Skarsgård, his whole motivation is, I'd like to see if there's a hollow earth. Can I do that? Cool. Okay, I'm going to go do that. Now I'm going to go over here and do that. Now I'm going to go over here. Furthermore, everybody else around him, nothing. There's some cliche, standard villainous characters, though I'll get to that point in a minute. I don't think they're particularly villainous here. And then we have on the other side, we have Millie Bobby Brown from King of the Monsters, one of the few human characters that have ever carried over in this movie. She's going on her own mission with 2 other new characters, played by Brian Tyree Henry and Julian Dennison, who, I might add, spend the entire movie just trying to make sure that every line they say is a joke, and unfortunately every single joke falls absolutely flat. The comedic timing is off, it doesn't fit to the mood of what's going on, and it really robs them of any personality by just saying, say a funny thing now. Say a funny thing. Quick, audience, laugh. You're not laughing. Okay, quick, say something else. The only human character in here that possibly has some growth and development is this little girl who has developed a bond with Kong. She is deaf, but she signs, and she's able to sign and communicate with Kong. But apart from getting the information of saying, oh, this stuff happened to her and now she's here with Kong and that, she really is only in the movie as well to tell Kong to do things. Unfortunately, when you've got such bland characters, but they take up a majority of the film that's called Godzilla vs. Kong. I mean, really, this movie should have been called The Humans Doing Things with Kong, plus special appearance by Godzilla for 2 minutes. It was very disappointing. I get it. You have to focus on the human characters. I've seen it in all the other movies, and I've seen how it works not effectively and where it works effectively. But you had found your groove by King of the Monsters with what to do with them. King of the Monsters, you want to see Godzilla and Co. Godzilla versus Kong, you want to see Godzilla versus Kong. But most of this movie is Kong sitting while everybody's doing some stuff, or Godzilla is out swimming in the water where everyone's doing some stuff. And unfortunately, I was so bored in the beginning, it really took a while for me to get into it. The first fight between Godzilla versus Kong probably doesn't happen for a good 40 minutes. There's a huge chunk with Millie Bobby Brown's adventure, which is completely disconnected to everything else. I mean, I would have thought her connection with Godzilla might have meant she would get involved in that story, but she doesn't even interact with any of the monsters. She looks at them from afar, but that's about it. Speaking of which, the villainous people of the story, their motivations for what they're doing, it's not clear. Listening to their original plan, I thought, that makes sense. In the world these humans exist in, with giant titans showing up every couple of years to absolutely destroy each other, the things that the villains are doing makes perfect sense for natural survival, to be able to protect ourselves. The only way it started getting villainous was the main people involved started acting villainous. They started twirling their mustaches or giving monologuing speeches about what they're going to do or cutting corners to do what they wanted to do. Basically just to say these are the villains, but their ultimate thing, what they were doing, fine. That makes sense in that world. I understand it completely. It's perfectly acceptable to do what they were doing. It's only a bit later in the film where they realize something that they're doing might lead to a villainous thing that comes out later, but that's no fault on them. They're not using this because they want to be evil. They want to protect the human race, and that's totally understandable. You will have to watch this movie for yourself and see what the villains are up to, because I'm not going to spoil it, but I'd be interested to hear what other people's opinions are of that. Do you think that what they're doing is villainous? I mean, things that Godzilla does in here as a reaction is a little bit more villainous. Godzilla's supposed to be our hero. He protects us. He doesn't cause collateral damage unless he absolutely has to. But in this movie, kind of feels like he's got a bit of a chip on his shoulder and is acting a bit of a prick. And humans are at collateral damage as a result. So, hard to say for certain. I have to be very vague here because I refuse to spoil anything in these original reviews. But it's worth taking note of. Overall, there's not much more to say about this review. I give it an 8 out of 10. I would have liked to have given it more, but I also don't want to give it less. I don't want to give it more because of the human aspect and how so much more front and center it is than in King of the Monsters or Skull Island, and due to the fact that the human characters themselves were so bland and boring and their personalities were not built on, or they were just comic relief without any personality. But I don't want to give it any less because the movie did deliver on what it promised when it happened. Godzilla versus Kong. When they fought, stupendous stuff. Kong was a very likable protagonist. When Godzilla bothered to show up, he was a very likable protagonist. If there's going to be a sequel, and I mean it really depends on box office revenue and critical response and all of that, which in this day and age is a very unsure climate. But if they are going to build on this universe and do some more things, I would love to see them face off again. But I would really like if that was all it was more focus on our boy Godzilla and my man Kong. And if you do have to introduce human characters, I have nothing against it. But please make them interesting. Pick some good characters and stick with them. Carry them over into other movies. Millie Bobby Brown, for what little she really did, at least it was nice to see somebody and go, I'm familiar with you. I know your drive. I know your history. I'm excited to see you and what you get up to. You don't need to introduce a brand new host of characters, barely give them any personality, and then throw them off the table and introduce a whole batch of new ones for the next one. But who am I? I'm just some dude seeing a movie and whinging about it. So maybe I don't get the formula. But that's what I would like to see. In a Godzilla vs. Kong movie, less humans, more Godzilla and Kong. Give Godzilla more than 20 minutes of screen time, please. Thank you very much. But there you are. There you have it. I've seen 3 movies now this year, so my top 10 of 2021 is getting bigger. I recently saw this morning that there was another huge shuffle of movies thanks to Disney not wanting to release movies because of box office revenue. I wonder if anyone remembers what it was like in 1901 when people like George Méliès released a movie just to experience the wonder of visuals with people. And it wasn't so much, I want to give you a movie so I can make $2 billion. I can't make that right now, well then nobody gets to see it. No. I don't think we'll ever have something like that again. But at least we are moving towards a compromise. Black Widow will be out in July on Disney streaming and cinemas. Cruella will be out at the end of May on Disney Plus and theaters. So more movies are getting cemented in. They will at least come out this year in 2021, which is better than what we had for 2020. But I also saw that Death on the Nile was pushed back to 2022, which is frustratingly frustrating because that movie's done. It's ready to go. It was supposed to come out in September last year. Why can't you release that on Disney Plus? Why can't you just release that in cinemas and just be satisfied that it may not make as much money as you would like? That's the climate we're living in. Every day, I don't know. We seem to take 1 step forward, 2 steps back, 3 steps forward, 2 steps back. It's a nightmare. It's a mess. But I'm sure we're getting to a point where things may one day return to normal. Whether cinemas will still be alive at the end of it, that's for the courts to decide. But yeah, Godzilla vs. Kong, 8 out of 10. Definitely recommend it, especially if you're a fan of Godzilla, if you're a fan of King Kong. It does absolutely deliver on its promise of Godzilla vs. Kong. It gives us a clear, definitive winner. There's a little bit more going on in the movie that I can't really talk about due to spoilers. If you're familiar with Godzilla lore, you probably know what I'm talking about. But either way, check it out. It's a fun movie when it is giving what it wants to give. I think you'll have a good time. I know the people I saw it with did, and I did too, for the most part. So, there you go. Thank you all for listening. I will be back next week on Tuesday as originally scheduled. I promise. I will not come up with a reason to not do it. I may be tired, as I've got another wedding to go to. Lots of weddings on in my life at the moment. But I will be back, and we'll be jumping back into the Disney world. I'll be talking about the Silver Age of Disney. So I'm looking forward to that, and I hope you are too. I hope you'll join me for that. But until then, I love and appreciate you all as always. Stay safe out there. Be kind to one another. You've been spliced in later. Adios, muchachos. I'll catch you next time.